to GEOSCOPE on Politics Social with me, Graham Hughes,
and me,
Ollie from Yorkshire, or Ollie Bowler Hat Man, as he's also known. So how you doing, Ollie? You all right, mate?
I'm all right. I'm doing quite well actually at the moment. Yeah.
Puddinator's got an urgent question for you.
Well, what would be, perchance, what would be his urgent question?
I'm interested in what Puddinator's urgent question is going to be. Sorry, a bit late getting started. Again, I'm in Liverpool. It's my mum's birthday today, so we've been out. We went to the Lady Lever Art Gallery in Port Sunlight, which is lovely. It's the little village that was built by Lord Leverhulme, who was, he's the guy who founded Lever Brothers, who now make all of the pharmaceuticals in the world. And he also made loads of money out of the Congo. So, hang on.
Oh, might have to turn your mic on, Graham.
Is your mic on?
Is my mic on? I think it might be. Yeah, you can't hear Graham.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? I turned it on my camera, which is there. This mic was off. God damn it.
It's all right. We'll get there eventually.
I'm on my little tiny laptop. This is the problem. I'm on my little tiny wee laptop here. I need like multiple monitors. I need multiple screens. Anyway, this always happens when I'm away. Because it's my cable for plugging in my monitor. It's unplugged. Anyway, Ollie, should we start taking from the top? Oh, hang on. Punninator.
Oh.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Graham, your mic is quite... ... It's very quiet. Very quiet what?
Very quiet.
Also, nice to Ollie living up to his namesake. There you go. Your namesake. It's not his namesake. It is him. He is. Yeah. He is the person. We've got Jane in the chat saying evening all. We've got James. We've got Svax. We've got Vendetta. We've got David. We've got Uncle Heavy. We've got David Downey in there. We've got Commander Max Headroom. Oh, fantastic. Hey, Max Headroom. How you doing? Ollie is nice, but I can barely hear Graham. So Stephanie. So, Ollie, you're nice. Oh, no, sorry. Nice and loud. You're nice and loud. I like to think of myself as nice and loud. Anyway, shock poll, Ollie.
Yep.
Shock poll, everyone. So, a poll has just come through in the last half an hour or so. If my bloody mouse would work, that'd be great. This is from Reuters. I'm going to actually put it in the chat. So if you can open multiple windows on your device, you'll be able to read it. Exclusive. Harris leads Trump 44% to 42% in US presidential race. Reuters Ipsos poll finds. Now, before we
and that is this, good. That is very good.
We've got to invoke the spirit of Uncle Phil and say, one poll does not a summer make. So, but what's significant is Biden was behind Trump by a couple of points. So she's had a massive bump. And the bump that she has given the Democrat ticket, if you want to call it that, is actually bigger than the bump Trump got after his attempted assassination.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that had a major bump. I didn't really see that his assassination attempt gave him any.
Have a look at 538.com or whatever. No, it's not. That's not the right address. It's ABC now. It's on the ABC site. Just go and have a look at the polls on 538, and there was a divergence. And you're right. I don't think it was just the one event. I don't think it was the assassination attempt. I think it was a combination of factors, and obviously the horrific debate. Was the catalyst of it.
Everything sort of coming together. The fact that everyone was talking about Joe Biden's age.
Polls diverging. And now Kamala's overtaken Trump. Great start. Still a lot of work to do. It's a long way till November. But at least that's given me a little bit of a spring in my step, shall I say. Ollie, you've got an urgent question, mate. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. Where's the fez, man?
Oh, that would be here. Hold on.
Oh, mate, you just made me laugh into me tea, and me tea went everywhere.
my fez is a bit too small for my head, unfortunately. It's a bit small.
Thanks. My-
After we're at like a joint. After we're at a bit of a jointy angle, a
you just
jointy
made me
angle,
laugh
jointy
into me.
angle.
I just snorted tea everywhere. I don't know. Anyway, so I mean, look, I said to Phil this morning before he started the show, I said, "Are you going to mention what's happened in America?" And he goes, "No, because you've done it to death." So I don't want to talk about it too much, but I would like to have, before we move on to other things going on around the world, your sort of take on the situation. Are you happy about this? Do you think this is the right move?
Yes, I mean, I was initially worried because I did a video sort of Monday morning when all this came out, and my big worry was that they weren't necessarily going to go for Harris. That was my big worry because it was not set in stone that they were going to go for her because I still think Obama hasn't come out for her. At least I don't.
I spoke to Phil about that as well. He reckons that Obama will hang on until after the convention because his line is going to be, "I will back
Yeah.
whoever's nominated." And since he's not an active politician,
Mm.
his vote for her will mean less than say Nancy
Well,
Pelosi's or someone.
again, he's still a massive influential figure in the
Yeah,
party,
that's a good point.
and I think if you really sort of want to cement that
Yeah,
it's going to be Kamala,
yeah,
then you've sort of got to have you've got the Clintons, you've got the Bidens, having Obama
yeah.
really at that point cements it at that point. Um, the next big question is now that we probably know it's going to go in that direction that it is going to be her. Who's her VP? Uh,
Um,
that'll be, I think, important as well.
I really do hope that it is one of the swing states representatives.
Mm.
So you've got Gretchen Whitmer, who would be good because she's going to bring Michigan with her.
Yep.
You've got Stacey Abrams, who could conceivably bring Georgia with her. And then, what's the name of the guy from Arizona? Matt, is it? Oh, someone's going to tell me in the chat now. Arizona and both the state of Arizona and both the state of Georgia were both only won by about 10,000 votes last time.
Mm.
So someone representing
Very
those
purple
states
states, as
would
they
be a
call them.
very, very, very good thing to have on the ticket.
Yeah, Midwest.
Midwest.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of talk about that as well. That they want someone Midwest
Yeah.
because there's the worry that obviously that she's too California-ish. But again, that's probably like a very American thing to like say that's too California-ish. It'd be like saying if Andy Burnham was ever in a position to be like running to be prime minister, oh, he's a bit too Manchester-ish. Or he's a bit too northernish.
I think that people do think that down south. If you got a northern accent, I think they do sort of think, oh, they don't sound like they know what they're talking about.
Northern accent, the most trusted and sexiest accent there is.
So yeah, Josh Shapiro, he is the governor of Pennsylvania. He'd be a very good person to have on the ticket. And I would also say as well, so anyone from any of the six swing states, but I do like him, and I do like the guy who's the husband of. Oh, I'm not doing so well tonight. What's the name of the guy from Arizona? Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly, astronaut, NASA astronaut, and husband of Gabby Gifford, who was famously shot in the head and survived unbelievably. Yeah, he would be very popular as well. I will say, and you can call me a sexist, misogynistic pig if you like for saying this, but I do think it would probably be a better idea to have a man on the ticket than two women, because I think it's going to be hard enough for a woman to become president in the first place, even against someone as toxic as Trump.
One of the things that actually one of the big pluses about running Kamala really is the whole abortion debate, because they can really run on that hard about being a woman's individual choice, and sort of the fact that they're coming after sort of abortion rights, which again we know they are. they're certainly going to, we don't care if the blue states do it. No, they do. They really do. So they're going to come after the blue states in some way, shape, or form on that. But it would be, it would be, I think, the best way to do it. And that, I think, we'll see what happens again as the race starts to pick up. Certainly once she gets the full nomination in, I think, 3-4 weeks' time, I think it is, when they have the convention, we'll really start to see at that point what her program becomes, and we'll also see who becomes the VP as well at that point as well. Maybe they'll have a bit of an open convention.
For the
choose
for the VP.
That's a possibility
for the VP.
But we'll see what happens.
Well, okay, so Kamala Harris has now got enough delegates on side, hasn't she? So she's won.
Yeah, she's got donor support. She's got crowd support. I think she raised how much
million?
Yeah, in like less than a couple of hours of her being announced. That's a very, very, very good sign.
Yes.
In America, money matters.
Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. He says Andy Bashir, governor of Turkey, very blue collar. And this is another thing. Trump didn't have a particularly good catchment area for his Veep pick, whereas the Democrats have got a lot of very, very good candidates for this who will be very qualified in their own right to run as VP. But don't forget, I mean, like, I remember people were a bit surprised that Obama didn't have Clinton as his VP. But then she went on to be the equivalent of the foreign secretary.
I think she wanted to be president. I think she wanted to be president, and that's what she wanted to be.
Yeah, but the vice president, maybe I'm getting too much of this from the TV show Veep rather than reality, but I don't think they get to do that much. We haven't seen much of Kamala, have we?
They do set, a lot of the agenda. They do sort of help out, in and around the White House. They do help sort of really set the presidential agenda. Certainly more than, our, deputy prime minister does. That is a relatively new office. Doesn't really seem that too much of a portfolio. But in America, no, the sort of the government does do a lot of the vice president does do a lot more stuff. It's very, very, very party management almost type of stuff. It's really sort of rallying the crowds in many cases. So it is seen as quite an important job. Like I say, that's why you've got JD Vance there. JD Vance, if Trump wins, again, don't want to talk about it, but always a possibility. Or there's a lesser possibility now. For during the Trump years, he will really push for a nationwide abortion ban. He will push for abandoning Ukraine. He will push against anti-NATO stuff. There's a ton of stuff he will have a lot of influence over. So yeah. Oh yeah, and Colin Thompson brings up the VP does chair the US Senate as well. So
yeah, that's true, and also has the deciding vote if it's 50-50.
Yep,
which it might be. Okay, so I've got another super chat here from Puninator. So thank you very much for that, sir. All mad. The head of the Secret Service is stepping down after the big mistake with Trump. Next time, should pick someone with more accuracy. Thanks for that. Would you like to know a really fun fact about this US election?
Oh, what fact have you got for us? I feel like you need to have a Graham
that Biden has dropped out. This is the first election for the president in America that hasn't since 1976. So since before I was born, that hasn't had a Bush, a Clinton, or a Biden on the ticket. Boom. Now you're thinking about it, aren't you? Because they were the VPs, weren't they?
Yep. But though that's more really, I think that a lot of people have talked about this, that this is almost the passing of the torch, that a lot of these, the Bush, well, certainly the Democrats, the Clintons, there's not really any on the radar at the moment to sort of really step up into politics. but there is really a sense of a transition going on in both the Democrat and the Republican Party, that you are now seeing a new generation in many ways step up.
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris is that first
She is.
lot of that new generation.
She
So
is.
I think you're going to get a lot of good
I think
changes because
she's
of that.
great. I think one of the problems is people haven't really seen her very much in the last
Yeah.
few years, because
But I
as
think
Facts
that's
points
Biden's
out in the
mistake.
chat, technically VP has no other job than the next in line to the president and a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Everything else is depending on what the president gives the VP to do. So it might be given the project here, go and sort out the automobile.
I think that's a big mistake that Biden's done,
Illinois.
not giving her more stuff to do, because
Yeah.
there's been a lot of stuff come out very, very recently, like the past couple of hours, saying, oh, actually she's really, really good at a whole lot of stuff, and Biden really didn't make use of her.
No.
So that is something unfortunate that I think we've seen, and that unfortunately is a mistake from Biden and the rest of his team, that they haven't used, I think, her enough. I think
I totally
there
agree.
wouldn't have been as much worry, I think, about her if there'd been a lot more use of her in the campaign. But I think it would have been almost the automatic choice. I don't think you would have had this at all. The past couple of weeks we've had, I think it would have just been right. No, just go to Kamala, and we'll sort out the VP later.
Do you think? Can I put my little conspiracy hat on for a moment?
Oh.
Can I do that?
I haven't got a tinfoil hat.
Can I put my little tinfoil hat? Do you know what? Do you reckon this was all planned? In that they didn't have to have that debate before the conventions. That's never happened before. So got to a point where people were screaming, get someone else rather than Biden. Don't have Biden going into this. And then have that sense of dread for people on the left of like, oh my God, it looks like Trump is going to get this election. And then, dun, 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 you do the old switcheroo. Kamala comes in. Boom. Suddenly, this massive jump in at least one election poll. Maybe not others. Other election polls are available.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Biden was very, very much wanting to run. Very, very much so. I still think he could have won against Trump. With the age-old question for the rest of time, could Biden have beat Trump? I absolutely do think he could have beaten Trump.
I don't think so. Not after that performance. I think up till that debate, I was like, yeah, maybe he can. It was open,
I don't know. A lot of people say his record was really good. His record, what he's done for being in office, has been really good. If he ran on that and said, "I've done this," I think he'd have done a lot. And I think he'd have brought up abortion. If he'd run against Supreme Court stuff, I think he'd have walked it.
I was talking to Mikey Famine from the BIM podcast yesterday on the show Stateside, where we covered a lot of the same ground here. But he was saying, you don't win elections in the state by looking backwards, by going, oh, look what I did. No one cares what you did. They just care about what you're going to do. And I don't think that Biden's voice was powerful enough. I know that's a bit hypocritical of me, obviously, with the cold saying this. But I don't think his voice was powerful enough to drown out Trump's lies. And that's what was needed in this. Or that's what's needed in this election. Before we go on, Claire Scott, thank you very much. Watch for Josh Shapiro as VP pick. Maybe Claire's put a bet on that. Oh, by the way, Phil totally lost his bet. Phil put a bet on Biden to win. Anyway, I don't think he's going to win now. Christine Cash, thank you very much for the 10 American dollars all the way from the US of A. Thank you. And Emma in the chat, lovely Emma, who came out flying with us to try and get Sunak out of his North Yorkshire seat. Thank you very much. I'm back. I'm now back after the blip. I only conceded Biden needs to step down. I stand by my stance. Trump is done. Kamala will take the fight to him. Hey, guess what, Emma? I am moving to your point of view now, okay? I'm feeling a lot more positive. Maybe it's copium. Maybe it's opium.
Tried to give you.
I don't go, but yeah, I feel a lot more positive
Well,
about it now.
like I say, remember when we were talking about all the negatives that Trump has, like the fact that
Yes.
3 of the big GOP, swing states, HQs are bankrupt. That's
Yeah.
still going to affect him. That's going to affect Trump massively in these races, because if you haven't got the money to run in some of these states, then that's no equipment to do like phone calls, anything
Yeah.
like that, run adverts in quite a significant way in some of these swing states. No, buses to move volunteers around to
Yeah.
do, getting people to sort of register to vote, no door knocking, anything like that. So that is going to be having a very, very big effect on
Yeah.
those 3 states.
Yeah. So that good. Do you know what I mean? Anything that's negative towards Trump, good. Put an 8. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. I think Biden only stepped down when he was sure Harris would be his replacement. As for VP, is Clooney a possible pick for Harris? I'm going to say a flat no for that. Absolutely not. He's not a politician. He's got no experience in politics, and I don't know if he'll want to do it. Would he want to
Yeah.
do it?
I don't think he'd want to do it. He'd actually have to probably stand up and show he's got some political acumen, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than his acting talents. But hey, actors getting involved in politics, it is a thing in America. So
Yeah.
from Donald Trump, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronald Reagan, started as an actor. So
Well,
you never know.
you never know. Svak's in the chat, who's in Ukraine. I feel much more hopeful and relieved now that Kamala Harris is a candidate. I believe in her, and I think that's true. I think that there's a lot of people who are feeling that way around the world right now. Of like, thank God, because I do think it wasn't me who said this originally, but someone said they didn't think that Biden had any chance of beating Trump, whereas somebody else would have half a chance. And I feel like although the Democrats have mucked up everything up to this point, I think in the last 3 days they have played an absolute blinder and brought everyone on side. There's not been any infighting, because that was my fear. That was one of the reasons why I was like, I want them to change the lead, the person on the ticket, but at the same time, I don't want them bickering about who it should be. And I'm really glad that the party has congealed around Harris. Is that? Oh, that doesn't sound very good, does it?
Yeah, congealed. Chosen.
Yeah. But rallied. Should we say rallied instead? Anyway, so let's move on to some of the other things that have been going on around the world. First of all, Nationalist campaigner for the Ukrainian language has been shot dead in Lviv. So can you tell us a little bit about the background of this story?
Yeah, this happened last week. Just after I think it was last Wednesday. Last Wednesday. I think it happened after our last show, I believe. But this is as of yet, we still don't know the cause of this. And there's again worry that it might have been, Russian saboteurs. Whether that is true or not, it's still, I think, up in the air.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've had someone who has been such a champion, I think, for, the Ukrainian language and really trying to push it for a number of years, really trying to say, hey, we should be speaking Ukrainian. We need to sort of stop speaking Russian and sort of bring back our own language back to our national quarter. And I think it's just a shame that someone like this, has lost their life. So it's unfortunate that they have lost quite a significant champion. Someone else, I'm sure, will step up and take her place, but whether it's just it's always sad when you hear about someone who's such a champion for this type of thing, losing their life in a very sort of tragic way. So hopefully this does, and we are seeing this since the Russian invasion. More and more people are switching to speak Ukrainian, And there was a podcast not that too long ago of a Russian soldier that came out. One of the things we know in the occupied areas that Ukrainians are speaking Ukrainian as like a passive resistance. And it has this Russian soldier basically said, "Oh, someone spoke to me in Ukraine when I was making an order, and they were taken to the nearest checkpoint down into the cellar." So obviously, if you do that in one of these occupied areas, you are taking a risk, but it is seen as something of a bit of a passive resistance to speak Ukrainian in these areas.
Yeah.
So, and again, something else that they championed on this. So this will continue, I think, but it's someone else will pick up this flag, because I think it's a movement that isn't going to die
No.
anytime soon.
Along with the Ukrainian language, there's also now the Ukrainian church. So they have broken off completely. So nearly everyone in Ukraine before the 2014 invasion of the Crimean Peninsula was basically Church of Russia, the Orthodox Church of Russia. And now it's the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. And this has changed a lot of things to do with Ukrainian identity. They celebrate Christmas on a different day now to Russia. And this is a big thing for like Ukraine to put down its own, stamp its own culture, its own way of doing things on the world, like to be able to say this is not Russian, this is Ukrainian. And one of the big things that we learned very early on in the invasion was that you don't pronounce the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, like chicken Kiev. You pronounce it Kiev because that's how the Ukrainians say it. And then also, the fact that you don't say the Ukraine, it is just Ukraine. So yeah, I mean, this is all part and parcel of that.
This language question isn't just Ukraine. This is happening. It's happening in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia as well.
Yeah,
they're in a very, very similar situation of where their language, very, very nearly disappeared during the time of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So they are also in a very sort of similar way trying to sort of re-bring back their language back into being spoken. But many people in again the Baltic states are bilingual, both in Russian also, and now more and more being brought up to sort of speak Lithuanian or
if
Latvian.
Everyone in Latvia speaks Latvian, then Putin's got no excuse to go in there and rescue the Russian speakers. Because there'll be no Russian speakers to rescue from the tyranny of whoever's in charge of that country. That I'm sure there'll be lots of propaganda and misinformation about them being Nazis or something. Because that's the way that Putin rolls. I like the way that Puninator rolls, because Puninator's just dropped a £5 super chat in the pot. Thank you very much, Puninator. I saw a clip from years ago where Mitt Romney said Russia was the greatest threat to America. While we rarely see eye to eye, I think he was spot on. I think he's right. I think Russia is the greatest threat to the world. The last 10 years especially, because it's not just Georgia and Ukraine, it's also the interference in the Middle East and Africa and political systems all over the world in order to create refugees to destabilize the West. Mm-hmm. It's heartbreaking that people had such high hopes in the 90s. I remember I was there. Svak said about the murder in Lviv. It was horrible. The whole country was shocked. While she was somewhat controversial figure, no critic of her wished anything remotely like this. She definitely didn't deserve such a fate. Yovosh says Putin is in a no-win situation. Can't stop, can't go forward, can't go back. If you want to just talk about the war for a second, I'll just mention again that at this point in time, it will be cheaper for Putin to lose.
Yeah.
Either way, he's going to have to rebuild Ukraine. He's going to have to rebuild all the damage they've done. And you can either rebuild it in a country that's at peace with itself, or you can rebuild it in a country that you have occupied and everyone hates you and everyone's taking a pot shot and everyone's trying to blow up all your infrastructure.
Yeah, there was a piece in the Times. The Times have done some really good reporting on Ukraine. really good reporting on Ukraine,
Yeah,
and they get very often get a lot of these, different experts coming on and to interview. And there was a guy who came on and he said, well, if you look at the casualty numbers that Russia have suffered, it's round about 1,000 people a day they're losing. That just becomes unsustainable. And that has only picked up very recently because, remember, when we're having all that delay about the American ammunition, so forth, delay getting to the front line, well, guess what? Those weapons have now started arriving again en masse to the front line. And guess what? Russian casualties are rising. And one of the people they had on recently was like, they are losing such a massive amount of manpower. There might very well be no summer offensive materialize from Putin, because this is when you traditionally see, from again just the past 2 years, you would traditionally see an offensive of some sort from Russia. He was saying he doesn't think there will be one because you'll just have such a big manpower shortage, a big manpower pool, and losing that many people, you will just lose any and all operational integrity. That it's just impossible to even mount that kind of serious assault to go and take land against such an organized, well-prepared movement.
Puninator's just put a point in the chat refuting what I just said. Well, not refuting, but mildly correcting what I just said about it'll be cheaper for Putin. Correction, it'll be cheaper for Russia. When the war ends, Putin will be wishing he moved into the bungalow, so not his problem at that point, i.e. he's going to get chucked out of a window.
And Sfax bring up in the chat as well the partisan movement. It doesn't get brought up in Western media that too often, but there is a partisan movement behind the lines in these occupied areas that is actively attacking Russians. Be it as he said, administrative collaborators, infrastructure, car bombs. So we are seeing that. So even if the war does end, that doesn't end at all. I think that would only intensify. Because you would have a lot of people who would be very, just as we saw in any other country like this, you would, I think, see significant, guerrilla warfare in many ways, I think, against, the Russian occupiers. That, I think, is almost guaranteed. So, how do they solve that question? Because that will get very expensive for them. But we'll see what happens. But like I say, hopefully that won't happen because Russia will have sodded off in back to where they came from.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? If these people who say, oh, they should just let we need a peace deal. We need a peace deal. Okay, if Russia lays down its arms and goes home, that's it. The war's over. If Ukraine lays down their arms and goes back to the houses, Russia takes over Ukraine and will run it with an iron fist.
In fact, this actually is a nice segue into our next topics. China. China is recently, I believe, is the foreign minister is in China at the moment from Ukraine, speaking to China about this, trying to sort of put more pressure or get them to put more pressure on Russia. But last year, they put forward this 12-point peace plan, and the Ukrainians was like, that's really a non-starter, and Russia was just not interested in it at all. So China's attempt to try and sort of end or even mediate this conflict ended up in a bit of a failure. However, also very recently, China's had a bit of a diplomatic coup in many ways in this, especially when it came to the Middle East, because they've got 14 different Palestinian factions, from Fatah to, I think that's how you pronounce it, isn't it? To Hamas, to come together and to say that all these different groups are going to form a united Palestinian government, that we are going to unite all the institutions together, and we're going to go forward as
Fatah
one.
And Hamas had a war with each other. They literally had a civil war.
Yeah,
which
I
pretty
mean,
much ended with Fatah running the West Bank and Hamas running Gaza.
yeah,
So the Chinese are bringing them together
yeah.
somehow.
I
Okay,
don't know. Again, we don't know the details, and we
I'm
don't know
glad if they are. I
exactly.
mean, what's the opposite of the enemy of my enemy? Someone
Yeah,
who's trying to make peace in an area. Great, good. Please do
yeah,
that. Like what Russia did between Armenia and Azerbaijan for many years, although I completely disagreed with what Russia was doing elsewhere, at least they kept the peace between those two nations.
yeah.
Once Russia goes, I can't be asked this anymore, the whole thing falls into bloodshed,
Yeah.
which is obviously
I
not
mean,
good.
that's the main. I mean, there's two major questions about this. Which the first one you bring up, which is right. You've got two very different, factions here. Just Fatah and Hamas. So different about how they view things.
Yeah.
Um, Purely, one was more ideological than the other. But there's the question of then, let's say they do this and they achieve peace and you get a unified Palestinian government. Well, the worry then becomes, do they start to agitate against each other? Does it start to fall apart, or does it hold together? We don't know what the details of this deal are yet because China hasn't released it. The next big problem, of course, is that you are talking about Hamas being part of a future Palestinian government. Israel and America definitely going to be against this, I think, in some way, shape, or form. I personally like Hamas not to be involved because they weren't the best custodians, really, of the Gaza Strip. Like I say, they only ever had one election. They got rid quite violently of all the other political parties.
Mm.
So there is, there is a reason why you don't want Hamas maybe to come back, for the Palestinian people, especially as the police force in Gaza was run by Hamas, very corrupt. Again, under Hamas. So as much as I would not want to see Hamas back, if this can achieve peace, if these other factions
Yeah.
can maybe corral and sort of control Hamas more and maybe sort of keep them in line, then I'd be for that. I think that would be a good way to sort of bring that about. But again, we'll see what happens. But I am very skeptical about two, shall we say, enemies. But as you said, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So maybe, who knows? Maybe this works. Maybe this
Yeah.
works. If it does work, excellent. But again, the big question then becomes: does Israel and America go forward with this? Because they will also be very significant parts of this as well.
Yeah. So news came in while we were talking. Then that 7 Labour MPs they've had the whip suspended. It's Apsana Begum, it's Imran Hussein, it's Rebecca Ballong Bailey, Ian Byrne, Richard Begum, Zara Sultana, and John McDonnell. We all know a few of those names from the fact that they are on the left of the party. And this was to do with the 2-child benefit cap vote. There was an SNP motion put in to scrap it, which I agree with scrapping it, by the way, make that very clear. But Labour were saying, nope, we're not going to scrap it right now. We're going to, I assume they're going to scrap it at some point because it's disgusting and immoral. But they wouldn't scrap it through a bill put in by the SNP. They'll put in their own bill, I guess. And those MPs have been suspended. Now, we can argue about whether that was the right thing to do, but this is what happens in political parties. If you don't toe the line, you get the whip suspended. They don't know anything.
Yeah, and they would have been told, by the way, this before the vote.
Yeah.
Like they would have been explicitly told.
There's a good chance that none of them would have been elected had Labour not allowed them to stand as MPs for Labour. It's very difficult to get in as an independent candidate. And not impossible, but it is very difficult in this country. So yeah, they owe the party a bit more than the party owes them, especially when they've got 411 MPs. But now they've got 404. No. Yes. I thought my mental arithmetic was falling apart there. Talking of being
And
elected,
also, I want to add this blows up any chance they had. I was worried about this because now whether or not they get the, if they do or do not get the whip returned, they don't have any power. They now sit as independents. That means that they can't, make any moves to get on committees. They can't work with, a larger party to sort of get things done.
yeah,
As Graham has said, I've echoed this. I've made a video about this as well. I would have rather they've gone, hey, we've got this, we want to see that two-child benefit cap, gone. So here's our plan. This is it. This is how we do it. This is the stages, and we are going to do it. And that's what I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, same here.
Them come forward with a plan of this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see. And they had the opportunity. They were in power. And when you're in power, that's what you do. You get the power to legislate and take it on that decision. Unfortunately, they've decided not to do that. And it's on their head. They were probably told about this before the vote.
Oh, they would know. They would know that. I mean, a lot of them are experienced Labour MPs. It's not like they only got elected 2 weeks ago. I mean, they have been in there for a while. They know the system. You don't vote against your own party.
Yeah.
Simple
Well, it was an amendment to the King's Speech.
Yeah.
So you don't vote. You don't vote against your party's plan to say, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do for like the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You don't vote against that.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this all in the run up that my worry is that these, left-wing MPs were going to do something stupid and they were going to, lose. And now what? They're going to all sit there and they're going to be sat there as independent MPs. They've lost a lot of power and they've lost a lot of sway.
Conservatives.
And they have not played politics. They just have played it. They played their hand so poorly.
Yeah, because this was the first opportunity to do something about the two-child benefit cap, and instead of doing the smart move, which would have been to go along with it and then put in private members' bills, push the party, get onto committees, get into the party machinery and actually make a change there. They've given up the power. So,
yeah, I mean, they could have gone to Starmer and said, look, we want this removed. Can one of us chair a committee to say how we intend to do this?
Yeah.
And have come up with a plan.
Yeah.
It would not have. There are so many better moves, so many better moves they could have done.
Yeah.
And they did this instead.
But it does surprise me one little bit that they've had the whip removed. This is what happens to MPs who vote against the part, especially in the King's Speech. You get the whip removed. The whole point of having a party is so you can get everyone to vote what you want them to do. Otherwise, don't be part of the party. Be part of someone else's party who, join the SNP or the Greens, or I'm sure the Lib Dems probably have you. Fine, go join them. You won't have any power. You won't be able to actually do anything, but you can protest. And does Labour want to be a party of protest, or does it want to be a party of power?
I feel because this is, and honestly, this I think is maybe unfair to their constituents. I often feel when something like this should happen, or when an MP sort of crosses the benches or crosses over, I almost feel there should be like instant by-election. Like I often feel like it should be an instant by-election.
I disagree. You know why? Because I think if someone if an MP does something wrong, now we have this opportunity with recall petitions. If you're suspended for more than a couple of weeks or whatever it is from Parliament, we can put in a recall petition. And that's got rid of some really horrible, corrupt MPs. I'd like to see that system made even easier to get rid of MPs, especially ones who have been accused of horrific crimes or have been arrested or are facing trial. However, I feel like if we are going to continue with the system where you have you elect a person to be your representative, then that person needs to keep being your representative. And in a situation where they feel like they can best represent their constituents by making a stand and joining the opposition benches, well, that's a decision that they
I'm just seeing in the
get to make.
I'm
Because
just seeing in the chat that they've been suspended, but apparently someone said they don't know how long for, so it might be
well,
5 days. So I
yeah.
think a recall petition's 10, I think.
Oh no, I mean they're not being suspended from the house. They've just had the whip removed, and it's a suspension. It's not an expulsion, so that's also worth mentioning. Right, we've got to crack on, mate. We've got 9 minutes left before we have to send everyone over to do our match.
Let's talk about Bangladesh, because this is
Okay, quick.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
New
This
job law.
escalated quickly.
Yeah, so there's been riots. To put it
There's
mildly.
not just riots. We are talking serious riots,
Yeah,
to a point where
epic.
the government has decided to go. We're shutting down all social media. We are introducing a curfew, and if the army catches you outside, they have been given shoot on sight orders.
Wow.
So yeah, um, it's gotten quite serious quite quickly. So the best thing to do is say, why have things gotten this way so quickly, so fast? It is all to do with a law that they have passed, which is insisting that 30% of government jobs be given to either relatives or descendants of, or people who were the direct descendants of people who fought for Bangladeshi independence. So they are very, very, very much so against this, because this cuts out a lot of potential job opportunities for a lot of young people,
Yeah.
and it has been young people and students that have been leading this opposition to this vote, really sort of leading this. So these riots have gone from, well, 0 to 60 in many ways, and this has had the government seriously worried. Seriously worried. I think this is far too the wrong direction. I think the best thing they should have done is just been, right, this is clearly not, not the law we want to go with. The people are clearly voicing their opposition against it.
Yeah.
We should just get rid of this law. But no, they are still very, very much trying to keep this law in place at the moment. But we'll see how this goes. Whether this escalates more, or whether there is a climb down, we'll see what happens here. But yeah, very, very serious, very, very quickly on that front.
Okay, sorry about my mic levels. Someone said my mic levels were really quiet, and I just went into my settings and they were down to like 4%. So I hope that's better now, and there's not so much background noise coming from my mic, because my mum's birthday party is literally happening in the kitchen. Yeah, I'm in the little room next to it, going, hello, doing this. But yes, that's why I'm in Liverpool. I was going to say, we need to just quickly talk, finally, about the Venezuelan elections, because this is really interesting. So we had the hegemony of Chavez, Hugo Chavez, and since then you've had Maduro. So you had these two men who ruled Venezuela for years and ran it into the ground. Now Venezuela has some of the biggest supplies of oil in the world, so it should be a very rich country on paper. But because of the clowns in charge and their incompetence, let's put ideology aside for a moment. Let's just talk about their competence at running a country. They have, both Chavez and Maduro have been horrifically incompetent. But they are buoyed by dickhead in Russia, by Putin, in order to, I guess, create instability in Latin America, create refugees. There's millions of people who, in the last 10 years, who have fled Venezuela. So much so that countries all around that, Colombia, Panama, up to Costa Rica, and all the way up to Mexico and beyond, you're seeing a clampdown on refugees, because there's lots of refugees all of a sudden. And don't forget, like, before them, the wars in the Latin America had all kind of petered out, or there've been peace agreements, and things had got a lot better in the years in the 90s and the early noughties. But yeah, Venezuela very much took us back to the situation where, they were getting lots of refugees, and they've been pushing people, displacement of people, never a good thing. Oh, except for right-wing populist leaders who want to offer simple solutions to complex problems, like Trump.
Yeah, like
So
invading Guyana.
yeah, but the
That we've
really,
talked
really
about in the
cool
past.
thing is Maduro is behind in the polls right now.
Yep.
And he is spitting his dummy out the pram. I'm really concerned. The election is this weekend. I don't know what's going to happen. I
Yeah,
hope
I
he
don't.
gets his ass handed to him. But also, I hope that there's no military coup. I hope there's no blood on the streets. But he has promised a bloodbath if he loses. Does that sound familiar? Because I'm
Yep.
sure Trump said something very similar.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's interesting about this is that Lula in Brazil has been warning, Maduro against this. So I don't know if Brazil will get involved in some way, shape, or form if things get violent in some way. But that could start something else. But the fact that you've got Brazil, in there saying, hey, calm down on this. It's yeah, it's not going to be good if things do kick off. But yeah, this is a lot because of there's a lot of poor mismanagement going on
Yes.
in Venezuela.
You know,
I've seen
you can fill up your tank for like $1 in Venezuela. Like the oil there, the petrol, the diesel is so cheap. I mean, when I say tank, I don't mean the tank in your car. I mean like your Sherman freaking tank. You can fill it with fuel for like pennies. And I don't know. One of the first things that these clowns did when they got into power, starting with Chavez, was they pulled out of the equivalent of the EU in Latin America. They didn't want anything to do with their neighbours. Now they've had a bloody referendum to say, let's invade our neighbour Guyana and steal 2/3 of its land because there's oil in their hills. Well, in the sea.
Well, and then their seas, yeah.
And then their seas. And then their waters. Does that work?
Yeah.
But just before we go on, Puddinator, thank you so much for the 20 quid. That is really kind of you. This is for your mum, Graham. Wish her a happy birthday from me, please. Hope she has a good 21st. She deserves the best. Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Buy her a Colin.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of very hungry people in the kitchen because they're waiting for me to finish the show so they can pick up the takeaway from up the road. Anyway, but yeah, we'll are you hopeful that they will lose this election?
I'm hoping so because I think Maduro does need to go. In Venezuela, he has not been a very good leader. There's you can find tons of stories about some of the crazy stuff that he's gotten up to, but we'll see on Sunday. Yeah. We'll see on Sunday and what happens on Monday. And we hope that there is if Maduro does lose, that there is a peaceful transition of power. Just things there could only get worse. Fortunately,
I've got friends in Venezuela, and it's not easy. It's not easy, I'll tell you that now. So anyway, look, I think we'll wrap. Is there anything else we need to talk about, or have we got through everything? So I was trying to wrap it up at exactly.
No, that's everything. Yeah.
Getting started. That was my fault, by the way. It wasn't Ollie's fault. Ollie was here on time. This time. Usually one of us forgets, don't we?
Yeah.
Getting like phone call at 7:30. Are we supposed to be doing a show, Graham? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah. Jez Hunt says, I've been surprised about some of the good things Starmer has done. I didn't expect much. I'm not surprised by this vote on child hunger tonight. Disappointed, but not surprised, sadly. Who will the CIA put in next if he loses? I don't think it was the CIA who put in Chavez and Maduro, because it's fucked America. Do you know what I mean? And if anything, the knock-on effect of the destabilization of the region caused by these dickheads being in charge who don't know what they're doing. Like, their own people are starving to death. They call it the Maduro diet. They think it's really funny. And you're talking to millions of people who have left the country because there's no jobs, there's no work, there's no money. They feel completely isolated. And I know some of that is from the fact that there's, America will interfere economically to say, oh, we don't like what you're doing. But at the same time, like, that is a decision that the leadership of that country has taken to stand up against America. And I'm not saying that all these countries should just like bend over and take it. I'm saying that they should work with, particularly their neighbours. That's fine, but they don't even do that. So in a way that if Venezuela was the plucky, the mouse that roared and stood up against America, okay, fine. I don't think America has the best interest of many countries at heart, to be honest with you. But it's the fact that they've pissed off, isolated, told to go away their neighbours, that the other countries in the region that share deep historical ties with Venezuela and Guyana, which I know doesn't share the same kind of ties. But that referendum, mate, what was it? 90% said let's go and invade. Let's have a war. 90% voted for war. Who voted in that referendum, and it was a very low turnout in just in Venezuela's defense. But shit, man, I'm just sick of stupid old men being in charge of countries and making terrible decisions, and then the people suffer. And I think the good people of Venezuela deserve to have a break after all these years, a break from populist idiots, whether they are on the left or the right. And Russell's asking about Cruella on LBC this morning. I only could listen for a couple of minutes. I had to turn her off.
Anyway.
Right.
we will let you go now because I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you're keeping a lot of people very hungry.
I could see Kat in the doorway. She's standing there with some champagne for me. So I'm gonna join my mum's birthday party. Thank you very much. We will discuss this further, I'm sure, next week when the results are in, and everything else that we're talking about. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks very much for everyone in the chat. Whether you agree with us or not, thank you very much for your comments. Thanks for the super chats. Give us a like on the way out. Big thanks to Ollie for giving up his time to come and speak to us and impart his knowledge and enthusiasm about what's happening elsewhere in the world, because I don't want to be too UK-centric or Eurocentric or America-centric. And I'll be back in the morning at 9:30 for Morning Brew. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.